Hey, everybody, welcome to the Clean Comedy Podcast. It's James, and I have a great comedian today for you guys. This guy's awesome. He was a finalist in the U.S. Comedy Contest. He's worked as a host for the World Series of Comedy. He's been all over the country. He's been on Sirius XM satellite radio. He has a dry bar special that he recorded this year. And he even has a podcast, which I didn't know that, but I'm going to go check it out. I know. Like, here's why. There's so many he's laughing, but there's so many podcasts. It's hard to know what to listen to because you go, okay, whatever. But it's called Self-Help Yourself. And honestly, it's probably exactly what I need to do because he reviews self-help books and then like kind of gives you updates and stuff. And I think honestly, I need more self-help than I'm doing myself. Like I'm a very much pessimistic towards myself. And so it's probably perfect for me. But either way, please welcome the very funny, the very talented Seth Lawrence. Seth, welcome.
Thank you, James. Thank you so much.
So yeah,
happy to be here.
What? Okay, is that a BYU diploma on your wall right there?
Yeah. See,
Awesome.
I did so well in school. All of my accolades are in the garage.
Are you married?
Yes, of course.
That's why all your accolades are in the garage.
Yeah. So I've got my BYU undergrad here. I've got my North Carolina law degree up here, and then right here is my North Carolina bar license. So it's all here. It's just in the garage where I record my podcast.
Now you have a bar license in South Carolina.
In North
Carolina. Now, what does it take to like get that transferred if you wanted to like say comedy stopped working out for you for some reason? Let's say like it didn't work out anymore, right? And you wanted to practice law. How hard would that be to transfer to like California?
It would be somewhat difficult. I only practiced for about a year and a bit in North Carolina.
Okay.
So I would have to take and pass the California bar in order to be licensed in California.
Well, if Kim Kardashian can do it, you can do it.
It's so hurtful. I know. I would like to think so, but I don't know. It took me a few tries to pass North Carolina's, actually. It took me like 3 times. And North Carolina's wasn't even supposed to be that difficult. But the year I took it, they, like the board had decided we need to get rid of the for-profit law school applicants. So they graded it way harsher. And anyway, it was a huge contingent of my class that ended up needing to retake. Wow. And it was like astounding. Like the school itself was like, this is crazy. What is happening? So I'm kind of an idiot. So I don't know if I'll be licensed in California ever. I'm really hoping the comedy stuff.
Well, my buddy who has like, so I'll tell you, sorry guys, I'll tell you the story. So in 2008, when like the housing crisis thing was happening and like the economy was going crazy, like it is now kind of, I was finishing my undergrad and my professor, actually I was finishing my graduate degree. I was getting a master's in military history. And my professor said, "Oh, what are you going to do now?" I said, "Oh, I'm going to go get my PhD." And he's like, "No, I'm not going to sign off on your thesis to do that. You have to apply to business school or law school. So you need to apply and I'll write you letters for those." So I applied to business school and law school. I got a 151 on the LSAT. I only took it. I didn't study. I just took it. I had 2 weeks. So and then my buddy and I took it at the same time. He got a 150.
Okay.
He studied for 6 months before that. I got a 151. He was so mad at me when we opened our stuff. And I didn't get into law school, and he did. And I had to go to business school instead. So
oh my gosh, what a wild world. That's wild. So funny.
So how do you go from being a lawyer to being a comedian? What's that journey like? How do you go? Were you doing it while you were in school, or like let's hear your origin story there?
So you're right. The superhero origin story for stand-up.
100%.
So I really started with improv in Utah.
Okay.
So I joined a troupe called Comedy Sports in Provo. They're kind of an offshoot of Comedy Works. I think in one day, in a world gone by, they were the same company, and then they split Comedy Works and Comedy Sports because they both do essentially the same thing, which is short form, team-based, competitive improv. So it's like Whose Line Is It Anyway, but with teams, and the points don't matter, but it's a fun show. So I ended up doing that for about a year professionally, getting paid for the shows my senior year of college. I met my wife during that whole thing. So she knew I was interested in comedy. Then we did graduate school. We moved to North Carolina, did graduate school, and I went to, I think I went to the open mic that the Good Night put on. That's the only club in North Carolina. It was on my commute between Chapel Hill and Raleigh where I worked.
Wow.
So I would stop by on Tuesday nights, sit in on the open mic, and then I eventually, I guess I should back up a little bit. In law school, there is a club that most law schools have called Law Review, which is not the prestigious journal. It's actually like a variety show, comedy show club that they put on every year at the end of the year to let all the students kind of blow off steam, right? And they take everything. They take music, they take sketches, they take live, like all that. So my first year there, I decided I'm going to write a 5-minute stand-up bit. I'm going to do stand-up for my law school, and it'll be full of inside jokes. And it went amazing. It's honestly one of the performances that I'm sure you have this, James, where you have performances that you chase. You have a good feeling, you have a great show, and then you chase that for the next life,
Forever.
Yeah. So that was my first time really doing stand up where I took it very seriously and did it. I did try at BYU with their stand up club my senior year. I went and auditioned and failed miserably. It was so bad.
Wow.
And my wife watched me and I think has some PTSD from that experience. So she is very nervous watching me still. She's like, oh my gosh. Anyhow, so those are the kind of little forays into it. I performed at the open mic at the Good Nights, and they had like a very old boy kind of mentality. You had to go and watch for like a month before they even put you in the lineup to like perform for 3 minutes for nobody. They did have an audience, but it's not anybody important. It was just normal people. And it was run by the NC State club. There was an NC State club that kind of took over the Good Nights for their open mic. Anyhow, so I performed there. I did not that great at that Good Night spot. And then we went about our lives, and my wife graduated from her doctorate in accounting at UNC, and then was looking around the country for work. And in academia, you have to just go where you're accepted, right? And so as we were talking about it, we knew we were going to move. So then the question was, well, if we move, I would need to get relicensed. Do I want to do that? Or do I want to stay home with kids and do something more art, focused, stand up in particular? So she applied to a bunch of schools in New York, a bunch of schools in LA, and then some kind of in the middle of the country. And it just so happened that LA worked out. So we moved here with the intent that I would stay home with the kids. When we were looking for her job, we already had 2 kids and we knew we were going to have more. So I was definitely, we knew we needed someone for childcare, either me or we outsource it. So we decided to do the progressive thing. And I'm a stay-at-home dad. And
that's awesome.
Stand up at night. And it's been great. Yeah, it's been really good. So marry up. If you want to do stand up, marry up. That's the advice I have.
No, that's great advice. I married up too. But now my kids are in high school, so I don't. And one of them has a license, so I never see them anymore. Actually, they just disappear.
Yeah, it's perfect. That's what we want.
This is how I know whether my kids are home or not. I look at the blinds. Is their car there? Nope, they're not home.
Yeah,
that's literally all I do.
Yeah, that's great. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Yeah, so anyway, that's the origin story. And I've been doing stand-up since we moved to LA we moved to LA in 2016, I think the summer of 2016. And then I kind of took a year to kind of get the kids settled, get myself in the scene a little bit, and really started in 2017.
Wow. You and I kind of started around the same time. I started in 2016, around that time.
Oh, nice.
I waited until I was 30, about to turn 35 before I started doing stand-up.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was what, 31, 32, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So
I wish I would have started in my 20s, but at the same time, would I have had as good of jokes, or would I just be doing what open mic comedians do and talk about Tinder and what I'm saying, all that weird stuff?
Yeah. Well, and if you were married in your 20s, then it would have been slightly different, but most likely it would have been the same stuff that we both see all the time. And I think about that too, James. I mean, I look to Neil Brennan. I don't think he started till he was like 35.
Yeah.
And he's done pretty well for himself. Now, granted, I don't know when he started writing for the Chappelle Show, because that's really what propelled him. But as far as stand-up goes, yeah, and I think also, what would I have had to say? You know, I look at stand-ups as not necessarily prophets, but they have an insight into society. At least they should. I think the good ones do. I don't know any 20-year-olds that have an insight, into anything,
No.
Um,
That's the age of vanity and narcissism, honestly.
sure. Yeah.
There's like the world revolves around me. I'm young, I'm good looking, or I think I'm
Right.
good looking, and
Right.
I'm out here doing whatever I want to do. The
Yeah.
world should bow to and cater to me, but that's not how it really is.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm glad I had kind of a life before doing stand-up. I think it gave me a lot of perspective. And I think, for both of us starting later, you don't have to struggle, I think, as much to find your voice, because more or less who you are. You might not know who you are as a comic, but as a person, especially being married with kids. It just does so much for perspective.
100%.
So
That's the thing is I think that's why my wife did push me to like go do it. She was like, you should do this. Because I like anytime I'm with people and stuff like my family or whatever, and there's anything that happens around, they all immediately do this thing. They all look to me like, what is he about to say? Like, what thing is he going to say that's going to make us laugh? And my wife and I bonded over our love of like funny movies. Like Billy Madison is a movie that we actually like love, and we watch it every year together and stuff like that. So it's like when you have a bonding over humor, anyways, then it opens up a lot of things,
Right.
So you did law for a year, and then the comedy has been everything you've done there. That's a fast pace to go from doing, starting comedy to now being on Dry Bar, being on Sirius XM. Like that's amazing.
Yeah.
Did you like sit down and really focus? Did you have a plan, or did you just kind of like let it go? Like what was your process there?
Well, like you, I only work clean. And I think now, granted, clean means different things to different people.
True.
I am a pretty dark comic. And my wife describes it as what? Like it's edgy, but it's still clean. Like I don't swear and I don't talk about graphic sexual stuff ever, but it's not necessarily like what your grandparents would enjoy. You know what I mean? So in any event, I knew that I wanted to work clean. As a religious person, I wanted to stay true to that for myself. And then it was just a matter of, networking, right? I mean, like anything, it's all about who you know. So I started a clean show, and it's gone through a couple iterations of names in LA. It was originally called Next to Godliness, because that's what cleanliness is. Then it went to Clean Up, and we might my new business partner and I. If you don't know Che Lee, he's great. He's a great guy. But he and I might change the name again to TV Set for brevity and kind of to get away from the clean stigma. Because when people hear clean, they think, oh, it's not funny. It's going to be puns or dad jokes or something kind of lame, hokey. So TV sounds a little bit more flashy. And that's really the point of the show anyway, was to give people a venue, an audience that wants TV clean material. So doing that clean show, huge shout out to Josh Edelman, if you know Josh Edelman. Speaking of narcissists, and he ended up connecting me with oh man, I always forget his name. Gosh darn it, it's gonna bother me.
Are you talking about for Dry Bar? Are you talking about Key Stubbs?
No, Josh had nothing to do with my Dry Bar debut. Gosh darn it, what is his name? He is now like in directing school. He's at a film school. Gosh darn it, it'll come to me. Shoot, but he connected me with this other guy who does recordings for Sirius XM, kind of has an inside track to Sirius XM. So cool. he was looking for venues or for shows that he could submit for SiriusXM, and Josh hooked us up. So he came and recorded a couple shows. So that's how I got my jokes on SiriusXM, because I was hosting the show that I produced. So that's how that happened. Then the Dry Bar thing was through hosting with the World Series of Comedy. So I did the World Series of Comedy and competed in it. I think, I'm trying to remember, I think I just competed in it 1 year. And then Joe and Jason approached me about working as a host. So I went back and hosted for them in the 2021 year, which was like a debacle because of COVID. So they had to do a bunch of, date changes and venue changes and things like that. But it ended up working out. It was a good experience for stage time. I performed all over the country. My wife was not really working in the classroom because schools weren't in session in LA. It was all Zoom stuff. So she was home with the kids when she wasn't working. And we made it work. When I finished hosting that season, my wife was like, never again. You can never do this again unless you're getting paid way more money. And that was fair. But it was a very good experience for building stage time. So I was, and for seeing that your jokes work elsewhere, So through that, I met a guy named Jeff Shaw in Atlanta. And Jeff is so nice, so great. And he's done, I think now 3 Dry Bar specials.
Yep. So
he told me, because I approached him. I knew that he had done Dry Bar. I approached him, was like, hey, I would love to do Dry Bar. I liked your set. What, I want to do it. What pointers do you have for me? So he said, he saw me host and he was like, you seem to work clean. You seem great. So send me your tape and I'll give you pointers on it and I'll tell you when to send it. And then you use my name with Keith. I was like, oh, that's fantastic. So through a process of trying to find enough time to film, tape a longer set in LA, which is very difficult, then sending it. It took maybe I think it was actually about 2 years for me setting that goal to get on Dry Bar, meeting Jeff, sending him my tape, getting some notes and sending it back. It was about 2 years before I finally got the date from Keith Stubbs. And Keith, I've learned this in comedy. No response is not a no.
Right.
It's haven't seen it. So you just got to keep sending it, and it'll work out. Or you'll get a rejection, but at least you'll know. You know what I mean? Right. You'll finally get an answer, but keep sending until you get an answer. That's what I've learned.
That's a good way to think about it. Because I am too scared about getting the rejection that I don't send.
Yeah, sure.
That happens to me more often than not. I will talk myself out of the thing where I go, you know what? They're probably not going to like it anyway. I'm not going to waste their time. Like literally.
Yeah, sure. I think we have to get over that though, because I mean, we've both seen people on shows where we're like, how did you get here? And they sent it. Yeah. That's how they got there. They sent it.
They have that false confidence. You're like, how do you have so much? You should have none of this confidence that you have.
Right. I mean, and some of it isn't necessarily false because we all have bad days. Right. We all have bad sets. We all have bad time, but some of it is false. I will say that some of it is false for sure. But yeah, we gotta, a rejection is at least an answer. To be honest, I haven't gotten many rejections. I just get no responses, even in acting, like sending out auditions, you just don't hear anything back. Sure. It's a rejection, but you don't get the no. You just don't know. Anyway.
I think you ever have the feeling in life where you meet somebody and they come into your life at a certain point where you're like, oh, I wonder why I never met this person before. I never know why I had that interaction. I think I had this interaction with you for a specific reason because I'm writing a movie that is about improv. It's a 3-on-3 improv competition. Think of like Pitch Perfect, but for improv.
Yeah.
And you did comedy sports.
Yeah.
And you're a clean guy.
Yeah.
And we kind of have similar backgrounds and life experience. And I think there's if you're interested, when I get it done, I would love to send it to you for you to look up. And if you want to be a part of it, I would love you to be a part of it. But
you can. I'd love to. Please send it over. I'd love to give it a read and anything creative and fun. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Life's too short. Do it, send it, make it, whatever we got to do.
Well, the whole
Yeah,
goal is
I'd be honored. I'd love to read it.
the whole goal is to like have as many comedians that I possibly can come and be in this movie, even if it's for like one scene, one line, whatever,
Sure.
because I just want to give everybody like the opportunity, everyone that I love and like love being around and like I love, first of all, I love the LA comedy community overall. Is
Yeah.
there weirdos and is there crazy people, whatever? Yeah, of course, but that's everywhere. But
Right.
overall, we are all misfit toys that are like
Yeah.
found together and bound together by this love of humor and comedy and making each other laugh and making other people laugh, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And we're all in about the same thing, which I really like that aspect of the LA comedy scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
And
I'd love to.
it's funny because like you see people and you only see them in passing sometimes and you don't get to spend as much time with them as you want because like they're going to a show or you have to go to a show or something's happening. You're like, oh man, really
Yeah.
want to talk to that person. And you kind of run. Like a couple weeks ago, I was at the improv with friends of mine, and you know Jay Washington, like he's just
Yeah.
a big giant dude, and he comes
Yeah.
over and he's like, "Hey, buddy," and he gives me this bear hug. Now I'm not a tiny guy, like, but I'm definitely smaller than him, and I just kind of
Sure.
like envelop into his entire body. You know, and
Yeah.
all my
Yeah.
friends are
Yeah.
like, "What is happening right now? Like, you're just," and I'm like, "He's just a great guy. Like, I love him,
Yeah.
and I, you know, like just people like that. You just go, but I don't get to spend enough time with them, or you know, I
Right.
see preacher in passing, or I see people and I go, hey, how's it going there? It's kind of we have to just kind of go our separate ways. And I think
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a way for me to be selfish and get all my friends to come and hang out with me for a little while. Like, hey, come hang out. I'll feed you. I'll give you some money. We'll make a movie. Like, let's do this.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. No, that'd be great. The guy, Liam McInerney. Liam McInerney, if you know him.
I know.
Right.
I know it. Oh no, that's Mikey McKerney, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
There's Mikey McKerney.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the name I know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know
Different
Liam,
guy.
but yeah. I was like, I
Different
don't
guy.
know Liam. I'm just trying to think of names like as the Rolodex in the head goes.
Yeah, of
Okay,
course.
that's
Of course.
pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So
So he's one of those guys that I sort of ran into at the right time, you know? Jeff Shaw is another one. I ran into him at the perfect time.
yeah, Jeff
Yeah.
is an amazing guy. He's so polite. You know, we have a good background because I was in the Navy, he was in the Marines, and like we have like
Sure.
a similar background in the military and stuff, and just a lot of respect for each other that way. But he's just and he's so helpful. Like I've had phone calls with him where we're going over my set. He's like, "You need to fix this. You got to do this." And I was like, "Okay." He's like, "Also, you don't have a theme. Like Dry Bar is big on theme. Like, yeah, I'm talking
Yeah.
about like my kids or whatever, but I really like didn't have a theme for like what is it. So now I have a theme about being a girl dad and how it's just being a girl dad is very expensive. And when someone tells you they're a girl dad, that's just their way of saying I'm broke. You know, like,
Yeah.
right? And so then
That's
it just
great.
goes from there, and it's all about the expensive stuff that we do. starting with like
American
kids,
Girl doll.
American Girl
Barbie,
doll, yeah,
right.
all that stuff. Taylor Swift tickets, cards, Sheen, like
Yeah.
all the things that my daughters have had to go through where we spend a lot of money. You know,
Yeah.
I just developed a bit about Disneyland with my wife in the car because my family's actually going to Disney today. I'm not going, but they're going to
Oh,
Disney. I don't, not a big Disney fan. Like, uh, it's too expensive. It's only fun for kids, right? Because dad
yeah.
goes, that's $50, that's 30 more bucks, that's
Right.
$25 and stuff. You're like,
Right.
okay, by the time I get out
mean,
of here, I'm bankrupt.
yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. When it's your money, I love going to Disneyland. My wife pays for it, you know, so it's great. I don't think about anything.
That's funny because when you're kids, you're like, why is mom and dad so mad at the theme park? Like, this
I
is the greatest
know.
day ever. And then you're an adult and you're like, yeah, that cost me $3,000. Like, you
Oh
know,
yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It is crazy expensive. And the thing I noticed about Disneyland, we went like 6 or 7 months ago for the first time as like my family, you know. And boy,
how many total is there? How many total is there for you guys right now?
six
Oh my
of us.
gosh.
Yeah,
So
because
four
we
kids,
have
2 adults.
kids. 4 kids, 2 adults.
Wow.
And I think our youngest was just under the ticket age, so we really paid for 5 tickets. But then it's not even the tickets, right? You get the tickets, then you have to get the genie passes, and then you have to get, you know, it's such a racket.
Yeah.
But we get there, and I'm looking around, and there's maybe 1 kid for every 4 or 5 adults.
That's the weird part.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
There are too many adults at Disneyland.
Yes.
There are too many.
Yeah.
Get over it.
And they all have ears and the gear and the whatever. And
Yeah.
You're like, what happened in your childhood?
They're decked out. You know, I don't know if you know Justin James, but he's a Disney adult. I kind of make fun of him for it. You know, he's one of those guys. He knows he knows it's a little bit off, but he owns it. But yeah, it's weird, man. I don't know. Anyhow, so it's just like they were getting in the way. They're all these adults are just getting in the way. Peter Pan should not be that long of a wait.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's
You're now
crazy.
officially my favorite person in the entire world, Seth. Thank you so much. So I thank you. Where's my wife at? Like literally, I say that every time. I'm like, why?
It's insane. It's insane. I mean, anyway, yeah. But yeah, it's funny seeing people in passing as a comic because we're like colleagues and there's no office, know? So it's just you see them in happenstance. After I did Dry Bar, I was coming home and I went on an overnight. It was basically like an overnight, like I flew out that day, did the set, and then flew back the next day. So it was a Saturday, 2 shows, and then came back on Sunday. And I got a message from, and I only packed a backpack because I flew Spirit because that was the cheapest. So I didn't really have room to like pack anything. They want you to take a few changes of clothes. So I was like, my backpack was full. And then I get there and they're like, hey, do you want a t-shirt or a sweater for, merch, right? Like as a thank you gift. And I'm like, well, I don't really need any more t-shirts. I would really like the sweater, but I don't have any room to pack it. So I took the sweater and then just wore it. I wore it home. And a comic messaged me when I was waiting in the airport in Vegas. And he was like, hey, were you in Vegas? And I responded like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Dan Donahue, if you know Dan. Okay. He was like, yeah, I was out doing these other shows. I was like, we missed. I messaged him. I said, you didn't say hi. We missed our opportunity to be like cowboys on the open road.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, it is funny how we just kind of pass by each other. And there are some comics in the scene where I don't know where I stand with them. I don't know if they like me. I think they're cool. I don't know if they think I'm cool. Some days I think they think I'm cool. Some days I'm like, I don't think they like me at all. I don't know what's going on.
That's comedy, dude. That is exactly comedy where you go, I think this guy hates me, right? And you mention it to another comedian, they're like, nah, they're just like that. You're like, oh, okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
You're like,
it's like, oh, well, that's, I guess, nice to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy. It's crazy.
It's such a funny business that we get to. And you already have like a business mindset and like being a lawyer and doing that. Now, did that help you at all? Like, being a lawyer, because you have to be very analytical and thoughtful. What kind of law were you practicing? What was your specialty?
When I was finally hired by a firm, it was a boutique business firm. So I did like corporate governance, a lot of contract review, things like that. So it is funny talking to other comics. I was just talking to another comic a couple nights ago about the Dry Bar experience. And he was like, his mentality was like, don't sign any contracts. Whereas my mentality is read the contract.
Right. Yeah.
Read and know what's in there and then decide and sign it. But you don't have to sign anything. But it was sort of like every contract is fishy. They're just trying to game you. And anyway, so I think it has helped me. It's definitely given me confidence in reviewing these kinds of deals, and knowing like, oh, this is what this is really saying. I can do that. I feel confident when I get, and it's fun. It's fun to get a contract. It's sort of like a secret power, where it's like, they don't know who they're dealing with. I'm ready, You're
like Superman. You take off your glasses. You're like, I'm ready. I'm lawyer, man.
Yeah. Except for I put my glasses on to read it. Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think it's helped. As far as joke writing, there is a lot of overlap with lawyers or past lawyers who do comedy. And I think it is because you're analytical. And the way I think about it is when I do stand, I'm making an argument. You are making an argument. You're picking a side and you're making an argument. So it's very helpful, at least the law school stuff like that. That mindset has been very helpful as I get or develop a set. Yeah.
That's smart. I never thought about that because, your point of view, you're taking this stand. This is your point of view. And then you're focusing everything through that lens.
And you're arguing. You're arguing for your side, and you want everybody to be on your side. And you're making a joke out of it, right? So it's like so the audience might not really be on your side, but they understand where you're coming from.
Right. That's
Yeah.
so smart now. Now I'm like, I'm gonna go listen to Hamilton and make arguments that way. I'm just gonna rap my stand. I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna
Yeah,
do
that'll
that.
go over real well.
They might, you never know. They may be like,
You
this
never
guy's a
know.
genius.
I suggest head out to Simi Valley, do some JR shows. Yeah. You'll do well. You'll do well out there. They'll love
I,
it.
I've done well in seeing. What's funny is, so since I'm clean and you know this, like, and you're clean, you do JRs, and that is a rowdier crowd of the three of JRs that exist, right? So there's the JRs in Valencia, JRs in Simi, and JRs in Ventura.
Yeah.
The JRs Ventura newer, but that's the rowdier group, and for some reason they like me more than like
Sure.
Valencia, who is like very rigid, very PG-13, very PG,
Yeah.
like very clean. But the JRs in Simi, they're drunk and rowdy and ready for R-rated stuff, and I do clean stuff, and they're like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "What is
Yeah.
happening right now? Like, this is the weirdest thing in the world." Yeah,
Yeah. It's wild. The comedy is such a wild thing, and you never really know what you're getting into every show.
that's the thing, because you
Yeah.
walk into some place and you're like, because sometimes you walk into a venue and you go, "Oh man," the vibe you get from then you're like, "This is not going to go good," and then it goes great, and you're like, "Okay,
Yeah.
that was great," and then you walk into other place, you're like, "Oh, this is going to be easy," and you're like, "This I fought for every laugh I got." Like,
Right.
you're
Yeah.
like,
Well,
you could,
yeah, comedy is one of those things that you get humbled the longer you do it.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and
Because I
you have
remember,
ups and downs. Ups and downs.
yeah, I think like my first year, I was like, I was doing really well, getting laughs. I was like, "This is easy. What is I got this?" And then like year 3 and 4 is like, "Nope, nope, nope, nope." Like you just get, I was like, "Oh, what's happening right now?" I thought it was
Sure.
funny. You start to
Yeah.
question yourself and go,
Oh yeah.
maybe I'm not funny. Maybe I'm not as funny as I thought it was. So, like, have you had those moments of like, oh,
Oh yeah. I mean, so I prepared really a lot for the dry bar taping. And then after dry bar, I felt pretty good about the taping. So we'll see like what their rough cut is when it comes back. But I felt good about that. And then the next couple of shows I did, I had this weird thing. Like, I don't know if you've I think I remember you talking about playing football.
yeah,
So in sports, they call it the yips, at least in baseball.
yeah,
And I felt like I had the yips after dry bar. I came back and I felt like on cloud nine. And then I did a couple shows where like 2, 3 minutes in, I suddenly blanked. Like I just had no idea what I wanted to talk about. But I went up there with a very purposeful set list. I knew it. And then I was just like, oh my gosh, minor panic attacks. You get like the hot sweats. Yeah. Yeah. And then, it kind of goes over fine. But oh yeah, yeah, you have some ups and downs for sure. For sure.
what was your preparation for dry bar? Like, what was the process? Like Jeff Shaw saying yes, you can use my name. So you had to go out and get. Did you have to do? Because I've heard different things because a lot of it's changed. But like, you
Yeah.
have to have your whole 20 or 25 minute set that you send them for them to say yes, we approve you. Is that true? Still, is that now the way it goes?
So yeah, that is true. When I was talking to Jeff about it, it was not the case. Jeff
Okay.
initially told me send me 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So I did, okay, great. So I went and I had a theater show in St. George and got a nice tape from that. Sent him a cut from that tape because I think I did 15 or 20 at that theater show. So I cut that, sent him half of it. And he said, yeah, this looks good. You'll want it like tighter on your face because it was shot from way back and I tightened it, but he wanted it tightened more. Anyway, so then after sending him some iterations of the 10-minute tape, I then talked to some other people and Jeff then emailed me back and was like, hey man, they want a 20 to 25-minute tape.
Yep.
So then it was like, oh great, where am I going to find 25 minutes in LA? Well, like you, I am not great at selling myself. And I realized, I produce my own show.
Yeah.
I just need to bite the bullet and headline my own show and do 25 minutes. So that's what I did. So I kind of prepped for that show. And then I I sent out like all of my friends in my religious congregation, told them, hey, I'm doing clean. I'm headlining. Like, it'd be great if you could be there. I'm going to send this to Dry Bar. So we got a pretty good showing out. I did my 25 minutes. It went over great. I felt really good about it. But it was one of the first times I'd It was the first time I'd done 25 minutes in LA.
Wow.
Because unless you're famous, you don't get that, right? So I sent that to Jeff, and Jeff was like, "This is great." And that's what I sent to Keith. And I sent it to Keith, I think 10 times, because I emailed him like every couple weeks. He eventually emailed me back and said, "Oh, hey, we're all booked up for this season. Send it again on this date." So I did. And he said, "We're all booked up for this season. Send it on this date." And the date that he said for that second time was the first. He said, "Just send it back first of the year." So I was like, okay. So I set up this automatic email reminder, checked it, and I don't know what happened, but James, it didn't go out. The email did not go out the New Year's Day. And I'm walking around. It's New Year's Day. We're on vacation in Utah, and I'm walking around the mall with my wife and her sister and our kids, and I'm like, in the back of my head, I'm like, you should check your email, make sure that went out. I'm like, no, it should have gone out. So I'm looking on my phone and I don't see it on my phone. And I'm like, I better send it. So I'm walking around the mall, writing this email on my phone, clipping in the video that I'd sent, and then I send it to him. And I'm like, okay, well, at least it's sent. All right, I did it. And but in the back of my head, I'm like, my phone doesn't always bring up all of the emails that I've sent. It's so glitchy. So what's the worst that's going to happen? He gets 2 emails today that he doesn't see. I mean, who knows? 2 hours later, he emails me back and it's like, here are the dates. We're filming all of February, all of March. Take your pick. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So yeah, so that's how it happened. But I sent it to him a bunch of times with no response. So it's just a matter of continuing to send it. Then once I got the date, I was like, I initially thought I would have, I sent it first of the year. I thought, yeah, he's probably not filming till like June, July, August, summer, maybe even fall. He was filming in February and March. So I was like, that's a quick turnaround.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't have time to do like headline my own show. I had other stuff lined up. So I ended up just being like, okay, I'm just going to do kind of halves of the set. I can get 10 minutes in LA. I'll just do like the first half and second half a couple times. I posted about getting the date, which was fun. And a bunch of friends who had shows kind of hit me up and were like, hey, do you want to come work on some of it on this show? And that was huge lifesaver. So I did a couple iterations of it, then went and taped at Dry Bar. And I already talked about getting the yips after Dry Bar. My first taping, so the way they do it is they do, 2 shows, essentially back to back, and they have 3 comics on each show. And I was up first on both shows. They keep kind of the same lineup. You check into their theater, they get you makeup, they do some tip videos where you shamelessly ask for money.
Yep.
And then they usher in the crowd and they start the show. And my first show, I was 5 minutes in and it was going great, and then I suddenly just like blanked on what my next joke was. My family, my parents were sitting in the front row. I mean, they don't, I was like, you guys could have sat anywhere, but you're on the front row. Great. So I had some jokes in my back pocket that I was thinking I can do these if I am somehow short of time. I can throw these in. So I did those as I was panicking, and then got back on track, remembered exact. Because it's not like I forget what I want to say. It's I forget the little transitions into the next bit. So that's what I froze on. And then did those other jokes and then got it. And it was fine. And then the second show, and the first crowd was awesome. The second show, the crowd was big, but they weren't quite as lively as the first show. And in Utah, Saturday night, 9:00, like that's late. People are getting up Sunday morning to go to church. So they were a little bit more subdued, but I felt better technically about my own performance on the second show because I was like, oh yeah, this is how I want to work it. So that's how I prepared, though, was doing kind of little sets that I knew I could merge in together. But, pressure gets to you. And I don't know, there are comics out there who are like big comics who talk about they get nervous before every show still,
Yeah.
and they've been doing it like 20, 30 years. They have Netflix specials. They still get a little psyched out. And it's a whole production, Dry Bar, they do it professional. They have a whole bunch of cameras. It feels very, so yeah, I sort of psyched myself out for that first show. And I don't think, I talked to my folks and some other people afterwards, some friends who had come, and they were like, we didn't even notice.
Yeah.
So that was great. But, James, when you're on stage, everything feels so elongated, like time disappears.
Yes.
And you can be quiet for what is in actuality 2 seconds, but it feels like 10 minutes to you. It's like, oh, this whole show sucks now. It's terrible. This is not going to be good. Anyhow, so that's how I prepared. I did my set kind of in pieces and then merged it together for the actual Dry Bar show.
That's smart. Now, because of the first show, did you take like a little set list with you back up on the second show or anything like that? Did you bring in that stuff?
No, I didn't have anything on the first or the second show. I just knew like it was one transition piece that for whatever reason I just blanked on, where I wanted to talk about why I went to law school and being a stay-at-home dad. So the joke is basically I went to law school to be an in-house counsel, and I am now. I'm just in my house, so like that's the joke. And for whatever, I guess what I should say is not for whatever reason, I've done a couple iterations of that joke. And in one, I started by saying, I don't miss working anymore. And then I talk about how like my wife could fall in love with another guy. And I would be like, hey, but you still need me, right? To watch these kids that we made. So don't kick me out. But I didn't really want to go down that road for Dry Bar.
Right, of course.
So what happened was I used the same intro for both jokes, which is maybe a no-no, but I caught myself going down that road of like, oh, this is not what I want to talk about. And then I blanked on what I really wanted to talk about. So that was all that happened. So in my notes, and then after you do both shows for Dry Bar, they say, we're going to send you a Google form within a week, and we'd like you to fill it out to the best of your recollection of what you want to keep in, what you want to take out, and then send that back to us so we can create a rough cut for you. And then we'll get more notes from you after you see the rough cut.
Okay.
So I knew going in or coming out of those shows, going into the Google form, like I want to take out that part of my first set because I don't want that part. And then I'll clip that part from the second show into that first bit. So anyway, so that's what happened. That's
awesome. I mean, those are the things that happen with live comedy. That's how it works and stuff.
That's it. Yeah.
So one question, since you were going to BYU, and it sounds like you were at BYU probably at the beginning of what is the Studio C type thing. Did that ever come up as like maybe you wanted to do that since you were doing comedy sports and stuff? Did ever feel like something you wanted to do?
So it was a club called Divine Comedy at BYU. And my wife was in a couple classes with the Matt Meese, who's one of the stars. And we went to a couple shows of theirs on dates, and talked to them after the show. So I was in school with them. I didn't know any of them very well. And they were sort of what I'd heard. They were sort of a pretty tight-knit clique.
Yeah. So
even if I'd auditioned and wanted to be a part of it, they were so set in their cast that I don't think it really would have worked out, and that's fine. But it was so popular though when they were there on campus that no, I never really entertained trying to get in on that.
Okay. Well, what are your goals now? You've done Dry Bar. You're obviously touring places. You have a good podcast. You're a funny guy. You're a great guy. What are your goals? Like when people you get interviewed at a company, they're like, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?"
Sure.
10 years? Like it's like what's that for you? And do you plan out that far ahead? Are you one of those guys it seems like you might be, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if I have really a specific 5-year plan. Like, here's where I want to be in 5 years. The thing that I've given myself as a goal, I have a 12-year-old right now. I would like to be able to afford financially, my goal is to be able to afford a kind of new electric vehicle for commuting purposes for my wife and me by the time our daughter needs the car, right?
Right.
We have a Prius now that I would like to be able to hand down to her and her siblings to use as they get into car driving age. But I'd like to kind of upgrade for my wife and me to have a commuter friendly car for LA.
Well, just so
So
you know, Tesla Model Ys are about 44,000 right now, and I know they're doing
yeah.
deals on them. If you need a code, let me know. I got a Model
Yeah.
Y.
Oh,
I love
all
that thing.
right. I'll keep you posted. So I would like to use Drybar to transition into doing some road gigs in Arizona, Northern California, kind of day trips, Vegas, like things I can go to in a weekend and come back, sell some merch, get some money that way. But more so, I want to transfer Drybar into corporate gigs,
Yes.
which isn't stand up. I want to be very clear with every listener out there. Corporate gigs, they are not stand up gigs. You do humorism. You're talking to a company, and you might be doing some of your stand up jokes, but it's not a club. It's not high art.
I'm gonna connect you with
Yeah.
somebody after this, after we get off this podcast. That I
Oh,
think
that'd be
that can
great.
help you to do that, because I just interviewed him yesterday, and I was like, you ever met somebody and you're like, we're probably siblings if and to him,
Yeah.
no offense to you, Leon, but if we were the same color, we probably would be brothers. Like we would be, but we're not. We're brothers from another mother type situation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
like he's like that guy, and I think like, yeah, this is
Yeah.
like I'm gonna connect you to, because I think
Oh,
this is
that'd be great. That'd
a
be
match
great.
made in heaven, so to speak.
Yeah. So yeah, doing corporate gigs and then like a don't tell or something. I feel like
Yes.
late night TV is kind of not what it once was
Yeah.
when we started comedy. And I think don't tell is kind of coming up in that late night TV spot. It's all about exposure on YouTube.
I have
So
someone for you for that too. So I'll give you
hey,
that if
yeah,
it'll
and
feel.
I've got a couple pans in the fire for the don't tells. So yeah, I'm hoping some of that stuff pans out, and then it'd be nice to have. I don't know if Netflix or Amazon Prime is really in the future for 5 years, but pretty soon after that, I'd like to have at least one of those done.
Well, what's great about Drybar now is that they're putting the Drybars on Amazon after they're on Drybar for a while.
Yeah, and I don't know what the metrics are
I don't either.
I've talked to some people. It's kind of a black box. They apparently have like a calendar schedule, but I think if you do really well, they bump you up.
Yeah. If you're like Jeff Allen or like some of those guys
Right.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's all about kind of I don't really have a social media present. Like I'm on social media, but I don't have a huge following,
Same.
So I'm hoping for some of this to bring a following. But unfortunately, I talk about it like a first job. It's so paradoxical because you go into a job and they're like, we want references. And you're like, I have not had a job yet, but I can do this. And they're like, yeah, but we really want some references. It's like, well, what job doesn't want every job wants references. So how do you get a first job? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the problem with comedy right now, is that they're like, well, we want you to have a following. And you're like, yeah, but you're supposed to give me the following. Like I can do this and then it'll help us both. Anyway, so I'm hoping we'll see. Cart or the horse, chicken or the egg. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that's kind of the goal, is to build a following, but really just to get some of these nice milestones and to make some money. Clean comedy is supposed to be a path to money, James, and that's what we're all about.
That's what they keep telling us, right?
Yeah.
Now,
so, yeah, that's the goal.
Now, if you could go back in time to when you started comedy, knowing what you know now, and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that one piece of advice be?
Oh man. I think the thing that I still need to learn is it's not about what other people get. That's the advice. Don't worry about what other people get. Just worry about what you are doing. And social media is the worst for that. I'm a judgmental guy. I'm a religious guy, so I'm obviously very judgmental. And it's hard. It's hard to be like, how did they get that?
Yeah.
How did they get that? And I don't get that. And then I realized I didn't apply for that. That's why I didn't get it. I didn't apply for it. But yeah, I think it's just I need to realize, life, comedy, a lot of it is a marathon, and you're not racing anybody else. You're just doing it at your own pace, and when things are right, if you're working hard and you're ready, they will happen. So yeah, it's just about being out there, but not getting lost in what other people get. I think that's the biggest thing I need to learn, and that I wish I'd known better earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. We get
You know?
comparison disease. We get the disease where we go, well, that guy got it. Like, why am I not getting it? Why is this?
Yeah,
And you're like, ugh. And then
yeah,
all it does is beat you up. You just beat yourself up for no reason whatsoever. Like you can't control that.
yeah,
But
yeah. When you get caught and they're like, I'm not good enough. They won't like me anyway. I guess I'm not what they're after. It's like, no one knows.
yeah,
No one knows what they want,
that's true.
So just do what you want and then send it out to people and be like, here, do you want this? And they
I
might.
I love that.
Yeah. So I think that's the biggest lesson.
I love that's a great lesson. Where can people find you, Seth? Where can they see more of your stuff? Where can they listen to your podcast? All that stuff. Throw out everything that you want so people can follow you. You can get those follows, so you can get the shows, so you can do all the stuff that we want you to do.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for having me on here, James. You can find me at Seth T. Lawrence. So it's SETHT Lawrence, LAWRENCE on all the socials, X, Twitter, whatever it's called right now. I'm not on Truth Social yet, though I guess I better be. It's going public soon. I should get on there. But Instagram, Facebook, Seth T. Lawrence. Website is SethLawrenceComedy.com. I put all my upcoming shows on there. And then I'm on the SiriusXM channel. It's like Family USA and what is it? The Comedy Roundup.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, a couple of those channels. But you'll be lucky if you hear me. Let me know if you do. Tweet at me or DM me. Let me know because I don't know how often they play me. But yeah, that's where you can find me. That's the best spot is my website, and then Instagram is what I use the most.
There you go. Well, thank you,
Yeah.
everybody. Thank you, Seth, for being on. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Please go like, subscribe. I'll put all the information in the show notes below. Don't forget to check out Funny Money Podcast, which is a Substack thing that you can sign up to. Thank you for everybody who's listening, who's been signing up for that. I really appreciate you guys. I'm growing and doing a lot more stuff there. It's going to be good. I'm going to try to build a unionized brand right now. I'm very 7 brands all over the place. I need to figure this out and put it together. So I apologize to all of you for that. But so grateful for everyone who listens and likes and subscribes. And go leave me some reviews on iTunes. I appreciate that. Have a good one. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.